So, shall we start?
Csongor, you're on mute.
Okay, nice. So I need to be co-host always because right now I can see the people who wants to join. Divyanshu, yesterday you were a co-host.
Yeah, I was the co-host.
How did you do? Okay, respect.
I
Okay,
had a dual screen, so what I did was I moved this Google Meet screen to the different screen
okay. Then let's
and
do.
uploaded. Yeah.
Let's do. Okay. So let me share my screen and let's kick off this session. Screen 2. One moment, everyone. I need to somehow add a permission. Sorry for the technical issue.
Till then, can I give a brief introduction?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, good evening, everyone present here. Before we kickstart today's program, I again, Brinda, member of GDSC team in our college and your host for today, also would like to welcome each and every one of you to this special event. Hope you learned some new things from the previous session. Yesterday, we covered what is Flutter, its architecture, widget, and building movie app UI. Today, we all have gathered here for understanding some advanced widget and UI components. It brings you to the best window to kickstart your Flutter journey to build cross-platform application with our amazing speaker. Today, GDSC Nirma University Engineering, Mysore, GDSC Nirma University, Ahmedabad, GDSC BBSBEC, GDSC Bhaktiyarpur College of Engineering, Patna, GDSC Center for Converging Technologies, Jaipur, GDSC Institute of Business Management, Patna,
Let's see. Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Csongor Vogel, and today I will be present and I will involve you guys to the second chapter of our introduction to Flutter session series. About me, really quickly. So I'm a Hungarian senior software engineer at Talabat. Talabat is one of the biggest food delivery company in the MENA region, where we are right now with Divyanshu. Also, in my free time, I'm also teaching teaching Flutter in my home country in the Technician University. And last but not least, with some similar faces with Divyanshu, we are co-organizing and collaborating by providing a platform for the Flutter community here in Abu Dhabi and also in Dubai. So Divyanshu is living in Abu Dhabi and I live in Dubai, and mainly this is how we want to also involve the Flutter engineers around the world, but especially here in this country. So in the previous episode, we could learn that mainly what is Flutter, what is the basics, what are the advantages. We checked with Divyanshu, like what are the main differences between the stateless and the stateful widgets. And if you remember, we also created an application that mainly we showed some hard-coded list items. But our main goal is to somehow showing real data from the server. So today, as you see, like checking the agenda, like we need to learn some basics about the synchronous and asynchronous programming. We will need to understand the basics of the REST APIs and handling some JSON responses to be able to connect our movie application with existing real API. So let's see, like, first of all, if you haven't had time for checking it, here is the link for our GitHub repository. So you will find every materials and every details, every implementation is already uploaded right now to the repository. So if you want to beat the cheat, if you want to see some spoilers about this session, or maybe later you want to revisit it, what we will learn today, then this can be a good time to check it. So what was our mainly how we started and how we ended last time in our session with Divyanshu? Do you remember that mainly we created one screen, one list screen, and we did a known implementation of for the movie list items. So let's go to the code base and also revisit the same. Like you can see my iOS simulator on the right side. Last session, Divyanshu showed us that mainly this application can be run in Android, in iOS, can be run in Linux, Mac OS, Web, or Windows. So all of those platforms are available thanks to the Flutter technology. So here's we have a basic application. We have a movie list item when we are main list item. The movie list item also is a custom implemented widget. So we implemented together with Divyanshu yesterday. And first of all, when we are analyzing the list implementation, I just want to highlight that most of the things, like you can see that we could really easily implement this widget together. But most of the times we don't need to reinvent always the wheel. What does it mean? Like on Flutter, thanks to some of Google, we need Cupertino elements and components. But what I want to highlight that like this movie list item, what we can see in the right side, this is also like already implemented, like showing a list item is something really basic and commonly used in the mobile development, because mainly always we want to share and displaying some list with list items. So we can use the list type built-in component. This list type has really similar and understandable properties like the leading icon. This leading icon can also accessing a network image. For this network image, we can share the URL what we use for this John Wick movie. So let's placing this one to this one. In that sense, this is not a constant. And moving on to the next field, we also want to, because for example, if I'm just right now, you can see that this list style is a bit, how can I say that, really basic and not containing too much information. But for example, if you want to showing and passing a title, then we can do this, like placing this one. But here, also it can receive almost any widget. And yesterday we learned that like everything is almost a widget. So the text can be also placed now because the list style also have a subtitle field. But instead of showing the movie title, it's better if we are showing a rating. For example, like it's a really good movie. Like right now, it's really popular. So let's give it a 9.5. So we have this, but as I mentioned, that it can receive also a widget, not just a text. So maybe we can also just copy pasting the raw implementation. And what we mainly saved about this implementation, that we don't need to set right now the different paddings and margins and multiple spaces inside of this component. So if right now, if I'm calling, I think there is one issue. So if I'm saving the action, always run the application, and we can see that here on the right side, we can see this list type and implementation from it. So we don't need to maintaining for this movie list type if we want to still using some. But I wanted to highlight, well, as I mentioned, that there are tons of already implemented built-in widgets in our implementations. So mainly you can see that this list type can be also find before below this layout section. So below the layout section, we can see like what are the documents, video, which is showcasing the usage of this component. We can also see some built-in examples. So I really heavily recommend you to visit the documentations, because the Flutter SDK is really well documented. It's quite it's so joyful to learn more about the UI development, but not just about the UI development. Staying here in the UI development, now we switched the list items to real to a material component. So the next one is like, let's discuss about our list implementation. If you remember that mainly we just put every movie list, especially the column widget. So what you can see that what we are placing is this column widget, then everything will be rendered vertically. What we can see also in this example. But if you remember, like we faced with one issue in the beginning, like when we wanted to scroll and we could see overflow rendered exception, and maybe we could solve the problems like wrapping the whole column with a single child scroll view. This single child scroll view could help us to also scrolling behavior. And this solution worked initially, like it worked, we could use it. So right now, if I'm going back to the demo, what we can see here, like we have a single child scroll view, we have the column, we can easily scroll if we have multiple items. So let's see if I'm placing more items. Then we can see that we can scroll easily without the single child scroll wasn't possible. But speaking about the performance, maybe we will face some issues, because right now we are handling maximum 10 or maximum 15 items in this list. But for example, if we have 1,000 or 10,000 items, then we can face more and more issues. So talking about the 60 FPS, which is like promised by the framework that this is something achievable. So I have a sad news that we have to maintain more and more movie items. So what you can do is, and I also, how can we ensure that we can follow, or what Flutter recommends us to solve it? For example, we can use the list view widget, because the main issue with the column was that going back, this column, when we are pasting the movie list items, for example, 1,000 movie list items, then this column had to create all of them inside of the render inside of the render event, which is one render is mainly it totally equally if we are running this BF function. So during one rendering, like all of those list items somehow re-rendered and created in the background, even if you are checking that in the left, if you are checking the screen, then we can see that the customers or the user only sees maximum 10 items. So we don't need to create all of those items. So that's why we cannot face with the right frame per second. So as a solution, the list view can only create and handling the widgets which are also shown for the users. So for example, if you are scrolling down to the bottom of the list, then it will automatically destroy the list items. Its behavior is quite different what we can use to it, for example, in the Android or the iOS development called as recycle view, and the recycle view not really destroyed totally the menu items in that sense. The list view is a bit different, and using the list view has also a builder function, which also can help us to make it more readable, our code, and we don't need to inject every components step by step. So let's go back to our code base, and let me showcase the session. Like, first of all, my main goal is to somehow prove you that our current implementation is not the best. To achieve it, I need to somehow inject around 1,000 widgets inside of this column. It can be sound as a not achievable goal, but I have some cheats. So for example, there is one widget, guys, you don't need to afraid of about the implementation of it. So mainly we have one widget, which is called is iterable. And this iterable can help us to generate thousands of items what we are adding in the count parameter. So let's say we want to create 100 items firstly, and the second parameter is a bit tricky, but we have to add a lambda. And inside of our lambda, we can return one item what we want to duplicate and generate multiple times. It's a bit advanced, the implementation, but you don't need to worry. I'm using it only to showcasing the main issue what we want to solve it. So we need to return with the list items, and this iterable is also a list. It will be a list of list styles in our sense if you are checking the documentation, and mainly this column is also expecting children components, not a list of children components. So we need to also using this operator, which can help us to mainly just accessing the children of a list. So let me rerun the application. And as you see that we have almost 100 component. Let me place the index to the in the subtitle section, so it can also help us to detect what is shown and what is not shown. In our case, where are we in the section? And if we are mainly opening the performance tool, what is replaced inside, then maybe we can see that if we are scrolling, or maybe with 100 it can handle it, but for example, let's add 10,000 component. I hope it won't be died, but mainly, oh, I killed it. So mainly, as you see that the application wanted to load all of those list type components inside of this column, and right now it has a main issue. Let me a bit decrease the items of it, or is it working? Yeah, you can see, guys, that right now we have less than 1 frame per second. So yeah, it's totally how what should I say, that is not the best experience as a user to somehow handling this list like this. Okay, right now we achieved the 20, 15 frames per second. So we still need to improve it. So this is what I was mentioning, that this is not the most performed solution. So what we can do is like, for example, we can change this implementation. We can change the column for a list view. And in this, you can also handle this the scrolling behavior. So we can remove the scrolling behavior from it. So right now, if I'm running the application and it is saved, and checking the, let's mainly also restarting it. I'm checking it. Yeah, it was still dying a bit from the previous run. So let's give it a try. And now. So right now we can see that the performance is much better, but sadly I detached my simulator from the studio, so I need to rerun it, but we will see it really quickly. This implementation, how easily solved the main problem. Okay, the Xcode is built. Let's see the application again. In the beginning, we had an issue, but guys, you can see that even if we have almost 10,000 items, movie items, with also image networks, you can see that much better the performance what we reached. And what we can do another small improvements with our list. For example, if we are starting to using the list views builders, so the list view has also an own builder, and in that time we can forget to use this generation. So going back, so list type, it receives one list type. So we can use the builder constructor of the list view builder, and this constructor will receive one item builder, and also it has another parameter which mainly the item count. So the item count we can add right now how many numbers we want to show, and in the item builder uh, don't be scared again about the implementation. Like the builder is mainly the third type of how we can retrieve a widget inside of a widget tree. So one widget can have, for example, a child, other widgets can have the children, and there is another ways of displaying and showing a widget, which is the widget builder. So from here we can implement mainly we need to implement and return with the widget inside of an item builder. So let's return with this list type here, and then we don't need to do the remaining part, and reload our container. I think right now it looks good. So if I'm reloading the application, then it will still shown, and implementations we may. So going back to our example, that was mainly the UI improvements what we could do. Going back, as you see that mainly we have the next task, like it's really nice that we could show and display those hard-coded data, but it would be so good if you can somehow displaying real data from the internet. So this movie about John Wick can be really good, but let's see what are the other popular movies right now in the internet. So So, but to be able to show any data from the internet, first of all, we need to understand the basics of the synchronous and the asynchronous programming. So let's mainly specify and let's revisit what are those definitions and words. Let's start with the synchronous programming. So mainly, the synchronous programming refers to code that executes in a linear step-by-step manner. It means that like anywhere we are inside in our application, below the main function, if we have multiple functions, we will always start to read and execute those tasks from left to right, from the top to the bottom. So we are starting with the function A, then after the function A executed and returned, then the function B will be the next task which will be run, and etc. And mainly, with this manner, we will have only one issue. For example, if the function B is surprisingly the longest function in ever, so mainly in that case, the users will always see this loading progress state in the left side in this mobile. So what we can do is like improving it, or this is not just Flutter specific, Android, iOS, almost any software which has also UI, and it's not necessarily UI, but somehow you need to handle, and maybe somehow you need to handle multiple places of your application. So one of the answer to solve this problem was the introduction of the asynchronous programming. So the asynchronous programming allows code to execute independently of the main program flow. There are some platforms like JavaScript, Java, and other languages, program languages, where mainly they solve the whole issue by introducing the multi-threading. It means that mainly in parallel with the main thread, what you can call, for example, as the UI thread, in parallel with the main thread, if there's any huge task, really cost resource heavy task, then we can run them in the background, and then we won't block the main UI thread. But we don't need to we shouldn't forget that Dart is a single thread, is a synchronous programming language. So in Dart we have only one single thread. So mainly the solution of this issue, like how we can provide a platform and opportunity for asynchronous programming, like Dart introduced the own event loop system, which means it's a system, it's a message queue system or in overall. So here there is a small diagram of it. We don't need to go really deeply and understanding the details. We can specify some tasks. We can put some tasks to the events, and mainly the Dart framework and the Flutter framework can detect that which event which is done. We can stop some execution. Also, we won't block the main thread, the only isolated single thread. We can initiate multiple asynchronous tasks in parallel, and this event handler will always checking every time that is there any task which is already executed. So many there, this can help us. How we can put and how can we specify an event? For this, we can use the future APIs of Flutter. So the future is an object in Dart and Flutter that represents a value that may not be available yet. What does it mean? It means that like when a future is created, then initially it will be in a pending state, indicating that the value is not yet available. But maybe in the future, when this task will be finalized, then we can use its type. It can use the result of it. So for example, we have an asynchronous function. As you see that this is how we can specify a function as asynchronous by adding the async keyword for it. And mainly every feature every future should returns with its own type, and this type can be a generic one. We can, for example, we can also retrieve a string if you have this function. Like, for example, we have a function which is called as asynchronous fetch movie, and mainly this function always returns with one string which is containing a movie title. And right now I just placed as a delay, so we can also, as a delay is also something which can also time consuming. It can be also time consuming. That's why it's also a future. But as you see that mainly we had to specify this function with the async keyword, and inside of asynchronous function we can also await for the result of something. So for example, this movie title, which will always return when this long task will be finalized. And the really important thing that is like till we wait for this function, the result of this function, we won't block the main thread and the single thread. Like what we saw with the loading progress bar, we won't leave block if we are just waiting for a future result. So let's go to the project, and let's see how we can mainly using the futures. I have a small code what I placed into the chapter main. So previously we were working on the chapter 1. So inside of this chapter main, just not looking at the whole overall implementation, I put a small section about some features and asynchronous functions. So we have one dummy function, which is the fetch movies function. It's a future, and inside of this future, we are expecting that it will return somehow a list of strings. So we have, as you see, that inside of these movies, we are printing something. We are printing that this is a dummy request. Then we can put easily duration, it will wait 2 seconds, and then it will continue it's the execution of it in this block. And in the end, we will return with the John Wick, the Harry Potter, and one of my new favorite movies with the Jabbimat. So these fetch movies inside of this main function, if we are just using it like this, then you can see that inside of the main, we also printing one scenario for the loadings. Then we are calling these fetch movies, and then we want to also store its result inside of this movies one, and we also want to printing the movies, and then in the end we will wait for it. We will waiting for the future with the last print action. So right now, if I'm just running it, then we can check the implementation. Here, one issue that I was just so proud, and I removed one menu item from the other project. So right now it can be executed. So let's do it. Right now we are in the chapter 2. And as you see that right now I just commented out the run application. So we won't see any UI on the right side, but inside of our terminal, inside of our console, we will see some details, and we are expecting that we will see some print results. So let's wait a bit. Okay, I will just decrease the size of it. So now what happened that mainly, as you see, as the first time, the loading was called and printed successfully. Then we went inside of the fetch movies function, where the dummy network request was also called. But the main issue was that we didn't wait for anything. And mainly this main function was already executed with the waiting for the future. So here we expected to be able to see the John Wick, the Harry Potter, and the Jabby, but instead of it, we just received a future of list string of list, which is not so not so clear why happened this one. But mainly the main issue, like I highlighted in our presentation, that this is one thing to put the keyword, the asynchronous, but we need to also wait for our event, our asynchronous long events. So meaning this is how we can place a future to the event handlers. So to fix the issue, like we need to put the await keyword. So we want to also await for this future. So if I'm rerunning this application, then we will see that like after the loading, we will inside of this fetch movies, and we won't continue the execution of the main in this file. So we will stay here, and we will wait for when this function will return with the John Wick, the Harry Potter, and the Chubby Bat. Now we can see again, and we see the result. Like, yes, it started with the loading one, and we went inside of the fetch movies. We printed the dummy network request, and then the John Wick, the Harry Potter, the Jabby map was returned, and we could also display it here in this line. So, and keep in mind that, like in this session, like in this case, like waiting for this, okay, right now we are not maintaining multiple business logic inside of the application, but mainly if we are implementing and using futures, then the main application can still handle other parts of the application. So after this, when the Dart will see that here is the future, then it will just stop the execution, this fetch movies. Other thread, other resources can also living longer. And then when it will be returned, and when this fetch movies will return a result, then it will start the execution here. So that was mainly the small example about the asynchronous programming. I know that this is really the basis of it. The futures, we can also handling the different errors, because the future can be faced with multiple scenarios. So, for example, what if this function will fail, or we are receiving, or we will receive an exception which was thrown. So many things happened, and there is a really long topic about how can we handle errors properly inside of futures or with the usage of futures. But let's going back to our presentation, and mainly we will see that there is also a way to connect those futures with the widgets, with the UI. So we will use the future builder. We don't need to memorize the implementation of it. We will see it in the end of the session. So summarizing and giving some examples about this kind of time-consuming task, like when should we expect that we need to use some futures and some asynchronous programming, like or we can talk about for example, from my side, sitting on meetings, but in programming, like we can expect that we need to waiting for a user interaction, like we are waiting that the user will tapping or something what we can detect, the gesture detector. We can expecting that it will be time consuming if you want to read or write something in the disk data source in the hardware itself. We can also expect that it can take long time if we are maintaining Bluetooth communication. So, for example, if we want to check our latest run details, last measured health data, health specific data by using, for example, a Bluetooth wearable device, then it can take also a long time. Now, the image processing and maintaining some complex computations, I highlighted them with red because we don't need to forget that those are not just time consuming, but really resourceful tasks and computations for our application. And as I mentioned, that Dart is still just a single thread language. We still need to maintaining them carefully, but I don't want to go deeply about how can we run different tasks. We can also maintain multiple network requests and maintain mainly this is our main goal, and this is why we revisited what is the asynchronous programming to be able to handle the network handling. So HTTP network handling, to be able to fetch any data from the internet or communicating with any server, we need to understand the basics of the REST API calls. And also we will talk about briefly about the JSON responses, which is mainly changed between the client and server roles. So understanding the REST API as the REST, as a definition, it means it's a representational state transfer. So it's really popular architecture style for web services. Seemingly, mainly really briefly summarizing it, mainly if we have a client and if we have a server, then the REST can contain all of the rules in their communication protocol. The REST can specify different HTTP methods like the post, get, put, and delete methods. Mainly, those are the methods what we can also call like during the post method. We are creating something with the get. We can read the data. We can also update any data between the roles in this communication. Those are the methods what we also call as CRUD, by the way. And inside of the REST communication, multiple JSON data is also changed by the roles. So the JSON is JavaScript object notation. Is a lightweight data interchange format, and basically those are the JSON files which should be serialized during this communication, and we want to access the data from the server, from our application. We need to somehow open this JSON. We need to check the details of it inside of it, and mainly this is the really crucial point when we need to parsing the serialized JSON to an object what we can handle in our side, because in Dart we expect that we have to maintain and we have to handle different objects, not JSON data formats. There is a small brief spoiler and sneak peek about in the future we can use different code generation by handling JSON serialization, but sadly in the today's session we won't have time for that. So let's going back to our demo, and let's try to inject a real API call into our application. Let me copy from the chapter main session and overriding the chapter 2. So right now we are inside the chapter 2 folder in the left side, and you can see that I already added 2 other extra file. One of these is that the movie one. The movie, mainly basically this is the model which will represent our movie items. So it can has an ID, an own ID, a title, a year, rating, and an image URL. I mean, and this is the part what I was mentioning, like we need to somehow basically mapping the received JSON strings to a movie model. And mainly the main implementation of the network integration is contained by this movie service file inside your own IMDb, if you can register on this one. So for example, if you are checking their their web page, then you can see multiple details about I didn't like sometimes I'm creative, but I also have documentation that what are the name of the fields, what inside of this movie service. If we have API keys, so we can allow to also and we can also fetch different movies. As you see that right now we are using the built-in, not the built-in. I had to also import this package, the HTTP package. So if we are parsing an URL by from this server. As you see that this function is also specified as a future. So mainly the fetch popular movies, it will return in the end with a list of movie items. But before we be able to retrieve with those data, we need to see that mainly after the HTTP get called the specific URIs, like in the REST APIs, we are specifying different endpoints with own URI addresses. Then here you can see that in the response, we need to still check, like, was it a successful one? Was it a not successful one? Like every response has a known status code. The 200 status code marks it that that was a successful event. And mainly later on, this is the serialization, what I was mentioning. So from here, to be able to somehow handle this data in the Dart objective-oriented environment, we need to somehow decode this received JSON file. And for this, we can also use the convert package. And after this data, here mainly we are parsing the JSON objects, what we call a map. We can also converting them to example, like this line, which similarly seemingly is a bit complex, but this is totally the equal if you are specifying, for example, a list of movie items. Let's call it as a movies list. We can add a default value, like we can specify it as an empty string, and we can see that, like for example, we want to implement for loop. We can say that we want to iterate in the whole received data. So for example, like this. And inside of this loop cycle, we can see that every time we will parsing, or we will converted movie item. Let's call this variable like this. And we can see that, like, we can call this from JSON function in every items. So this will be, if I'm checking the type annotation, then we can see that, oh, okay, this is something what we can also handle inside of our application. And this converted movie item can be also just add to the movies list like this. So mainly those lines are doing the same what we did in one line. We could just also save the time, and we also don't need to maintain an empty list in our case. Going back to our example, like we will return with the movies after we did the decoding, and after we also somehow mapped and converted from JSON to a movie function. And then we can retrieve with the movies list. So this is our fetch popular movies function. This is a future. This is something what the UI can wait for it. And if you are going back to our presentation, then I promise that, and I also spoiler that, like to be able to receive the data from this fetch popular movies, we need to somehow connect it with the UI. So this will be the next one. So going back to our implementation, right now we are here in the chapter 2. Let's try to run the chapter 2. Right now I just copied the last state of the chapter 1's main file, where if you remember that we were still maintaining hard-coded items, waiting for the Xcode. But you can guess that, like, even if we have the movie services implemented, right now no one is calling it inside of this main file. So we're still showing hard-coded items. So somehow we need to connect it with the UI. So let's see, let's see how we can do that. I already spoiled that by accessing data from a future. Doing it, we need to change this movies list screen to a stateful widget. The Android Studio and VS Code also gives us multiple ways to do that, so we can convert it to the stateful widget. And now inside of the state, we can create a future variable. Let's create as we need a future, which will return with a list of movie items. Let's name it as movies future. We need to import our model implementation. And inside of this screen, we can also specify that we can call a function which name is init state. We need to call the super, and later on we need to also fetching our movies future with the right function. So it should be also asynchronous, as we learned that every every future should be called inside of an async function, and we can mainly call this function what the movie service is containing, like this. Let's wait for that. We also import that. Okay, now we have the super init state. That was what I forgot in the first time. What is the main issue of it? List movie. If we are checking it, it should be returned with the same. Can the assign future this movie? Oh, the value. Yeah, we don't want to wait for it because mainly right now we are maintaining a future here. And this is a future what is also necessary to inject a future builder. So we need a future builder and implementing it. Let's go for this side. Like we have a scaffold, we have the up bar on the top, and inside of the center we have the container. We want to use a future builder which will handling the future and can retrieve in the success state if the network API was success, then it can retrieve with the issue. In other case, we can handle the errors, or we can also show a circular progress bar if we have any issue. So let me this will be the child, this title widget. Sorry, the whole list view. But we want to show the list view only if our future was successfully. So we have a shortcut for future builders. What we shouldn't use here, inside of it, we can use, for example, just in a separate widget, dummy widget. Now it will work if we are just changing this one, not to the list view. We can use future builder. Here is the overall implementation of it. We can see that it has 3 sections. It requires our own future, what we already created in the stateful widget. Then if it has data, so the snapshot we return with data. If the future we return any result, then we can show our list view. So here we can place our list view implementation. In any other case, we need to handle mainly the as if and other sections. Let me also fix this. We have the list view in the data. Oh, there is one issue with the parentheses. Here we need to close this. That was for the item builder, and we still need one for the data. One sec. Oh yeah, one parentheses. Yeah. Sorry guys, so many parentheses we had. So sometimes this is not the callback help, but this is the sometimes not the most visible. So we have this. We have also like this. Okay, other part is almost good. We just need to, this, okay, now it will work. So we have the future builder and we can copy paste it from here. I just maintain it to make it more readable, and mainly we need to inject it inside of this container. So inside of this container, we are expecting something here inside of the center. Okay, container center. Now it almost works. We need to remove one. I need to place it to here. Okay, so the only thing which is missing is like also adding the future for the future builder, and we separated and isolated previously. So let's run the application. Let's run this main endpoint, and let's see that we will receive the data from our implementation or not. We can also put some cons to this file, and what we can also expect that if it will be successful, then we will see our list. In other cases, if we will have any error, any issue, then we will show an icon with the error icon with this exclamation mark, and any other case during the and every other case we will just showing the progress indicator to load to show the users that we are working on to give a good user experience. So let's run the application. Chapter 2 is already finished. It will be also with purple top bar. Let's see. Movie list in its state return future. We have seemingly one issue. Must be avoid without sync keyword. Yeah, let me remove the sync one. Yeah, because we don't need to also await for this. Sorry for the issue. Let's run the application. And now that was another one. So, oh yeah, what happened? The main issue that even if the network API call was mainly called in the background, and we are in the success state, we are still showing hard-coded ones. So what is missing is that inside of this data, we can access to the final movies, like we can fetch it from the future, because like what we put, like this is our future, the fetch popular movies, and if we are placing it to the future builder from the snapshot as data, we can retrieve the value from the future. So we are expecting that the health data, the snapshot on data, will contain our list of movies. And after it, we can also specify, thanks to it, for the list, so that how many items we want to show by accessing it with the length property. And inside of the list type, we can also return mainly right now. We can also use the model implementation, what we are using, like what kind of fields we have inside of one model. We can show and display mainly the image by accessing it from the movies. This is a array. So inside of this list, we
I think there's some issue. He left, but he's joining back.
Sorry, everyone. I had a connection issue and it kicked me. So let's go back to our presentation, our demo. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Thank you. So last but not least, the only thing which was missing is like also like fetching the proper value from the movies, showing the ratings. And right now, if we are rerunning the application, then we should see not the hard-coded files, but we can see the John Wick, we can see other movie items inside of our list. So mainly we could solve our main problem and we could approach the main goal is like displaying multiple items. Let's going back to our presentation. Mainly we can talk about like what's next, how we can also improve our basic first application in Flutter. First of all, please guys take a quick look on our GitHub repository because mainly everything is already shared about the implementations and we will still upload and maintaining it to future with Divyanshu. We hope that it can also inspire you. So if you have a good idea, you can feel free to share it with us. And if it's really a great work, we can also help you to get some visibility in the community. So, but in parallel, I'd like to also encourage you guys to continue your Flutter learning journey. Like first of all, you can learn about different scrolling effects and different ways of custom scrolling. The sliders can help you. The animations, this is also a more advanced topic inside of the UI development. We are also differentiating tween and physics-based and different types of animations. The asynchronous programming, it was just a really quick, brief summary about the whole concept. But guys, I'm trying to encourage you to also read and learn about streams, error handling, and we need to also be more familiar with the generators because the asynchronous programming can be really essential when we are talking about state management. The state management also provides multiple options. There is no one best solution for the state management. As you see, we can have the opportunity to choose what is the best match and fit for our application. Inside of the networking, we can still try different packages. Right now, we just use the HTTP package, but we can also try the DIO package, which also like we can also save time. We don't need to maintain different parsing and the decoding part of the JSON files is also handled inside of the DIO, but we can also talking about authentication, how can we specify different headers for the request, and we can also use different interceptors if you want to manipulate our requests and responses. Moving on, like after we can talk about network data sources, we need to take a look on that how we can also save any data in our local machine. So covering the topic of persistent data. After if we are finished and we learn everything about networking the persistent data, then it can be a good topic which is attached for the local storage, which is the platform specific APIs. Like if you want to also access some data from sensors, if you want to handling Bluetooth communication, that can be also a good topic and a good next step. And last but not least, of course, we need to also include the testing in our learning journey. And last but not least, as a next step, if you didn't do that, please try to install the Flutter SDK and please try to continue and mainly try to check what we built together in the last 2 days. So thank you so much, everyone, for your time, especially all that you guys joined in the weekend evenings. I hope that we could help you in your Flutter journey with Divyanshu. From my side, I really appreciate you guys for your time, and thank you so much for having me. Jai Shri Krishna for everyone.
Thank you so much, sir, for making this event successful with your thought provoking talks and skills. So, we have come to the end of this event now. I'm sure all the students gained a lot of valuable information from this interactive session. Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable time again. If anyone having any question, do write in the chat box.
Yeah,
Thank you.
please, guys. Sadly, my internet just kicked me from the presentation, so I didn't see the history of the chats. But if Divyanshu or someone can also repeat his question, then I'm here to answer it.
I think you explained it so well that no one have doubts.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
In that time, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice evening. And have a great weekend. Hopefully, we can see your next steps in the Flutter development. Let's see. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.